Hi, everybody. This is Radio Free Mormon, broadcasting behind enemy lines and all of that good stuff. I am joined by a very special guest today. He may look familiar to you. His name, as I understand it, is William. Is that right? William Reel?
Yeah, you can call me Willie.
Yay. Okay.
All
How
right.
about Charming Billy?
Well, there we go.
We'll call you Charming Billy. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Radio Free Mormon show, Bill Reel.
This should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see where this goes. You told me that this would catch me a little by surprise and I'd get to share some takes, sort of seeing these things impromptu. So I'm excited for what you've got in store today.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and set the stage for everybody. This is going to be a special episode, and it's about Jonah Barnes. Now, Jonah Barnes is also known as Captain Apocrypha. He's a guy who shows up regularly now at what is it now? It used to be Midnight Mormons. Now it's Psych Ward Radio, right? And 1 week ago, yes. And 1 week, I knew the answer to that question. Actually, it is. And 1 week ago, he showed up there, and he had this incredible theory to spin, which was along the lines of the idea that Brigham Young never taught the Adam God theory. And he had a lot of crazy evidence to show people there were duly impressed. It doesn't take a lot to impress the people there, however. And we're going to look at that. Now, what I'm going to do today, I was a lawyer for 35 years. The first 8 years, though, I was a prosecuting attorney. After that, I went into defense. But I'm going to put on my prosecutor's hat today. And I've been burning the midnight oil, looking at evidence, researching the heck out of this case. And I'm going to prove two things today. All right. You're the jury, by the way, Bill. Everybody out there is the jury, but you're the jury that I can actually see and react with.
Okay.
Two things. First thing is this. I am going to prove where it is that Jonah Barnes stole all of his research without attribution, by the way. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prove that Jonah Barnes intentionally lied to his audience in order to make his case better. All right. Those are pretty difficult things to prove. I think I have the goods, and I wanted you here live to see how you're reacting as we go along. Okay.
I love it.
All right. So the name of today's show is To Catch a Thief. The thief in question being Jonah Barnes. And this is the show. This is an alternate kind of thumbnail they have for it. He's a little bit skeptical as to whether the Adam God theory ever actually happened. There it is. It's from a week ago, as I said. And my question is, did Jonah Barnes steal these ideas from someone else? Now, we'll go into this particular quote. This is one of the things he put up on the screen during that show. We'll return to this later. But the reason that this is of interest is not only because I think I got him dead to rights with his hand in the cookie jar, Bill, but also because this isn't the first time I've caught Jonah Barnes stealing research. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, I did an episode at Radio Free Mormon detailing how Jonah Barnes stole my research without attribution.
Yeah.
Lesser minds would call that plagiarism, Bill. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, he's done that more than once, hasn't he?
Well, if he's done it that time to me, I know he's done it more than once. A person doesn't generally just plagiarize once in their entire career. It's like potato chips. It's like Lay's potato chips. You can't plagiarize just one.
There you go.
So now he's back at it. And the thing that is interesting about this is that he puts himself forward as some sort of expert. That's how he is portrayed and how he presents himself over there at Ward Radio. But he is standing on the shoulders of giants without acknowledging the fact that there are giants upon whose shoulders he's standing. That's a chiasmus, means it's true. Also, I want to say, I have not heard word one of Jonah Barnes acknowledging the fact, even though it's been over a year ago that I pointed this out, that he stole my research, or giving appropriate attribution and an apology, Jonah. And an apology. This is not what professors are supposed to do. Professors of Apocrypha, even associate professors of Apocrypha, as he styles himself. So let's go to this next point, and I'll show a second time when it is that he stole somebody's research. This is Eldon Watson's two Adam theory. Now, I will tell you, Bill, as soon as I started hearing Jonah Barnes talking about two Adams, and this is how he's going to resolve the Adam God theory by showing that Brigham Young actually never taught the Adam God theory, I knew right away that he was cribbing from Eldon Watson. So Eldon Watson is famous in these quarters of Adam God research, right? He's very well known for having come up with this two Adam theory. He has a page on the internet that's been up there for over 20 years. It was first published there, it says May of 1998, and it was updated May of 2002. So everything that's up here on this article, which you can find at eldonwatson.net, it's been there forever. It will probably continue to be there for a very long period of time. But I'm going to prove that this is where Jonah Barnes cribbed all of his research. Now, I'm going to show you once again that this guy is very well known within these circles of Adam God research because I did a show. This was back in April 28th, 2020. Over 5 years ago, I did a show. This was during the pandemic when I was doing daily episodes for 9 weeks, Bill. So what this is just me. This is just audio. This is before I went public and started showing my face. These are the good old days when you didn't have to look at me in order to hear what I'm saying. I guess you can still listen just to the audio or avert your gaze from the screen if you want. But this is about a 2-3 minute clip at the most, just showing you that this is Eldon Watson. This is what he's famous for. And this is from 5.5 years ago. Jesus. Now I want to talk a little bit about one other theory. Now, this is a bit of a fringe theory, but an individual came up with this theory. It's sometimes called the two Adam theory. And what the two Adam theory is an attempt by a faithful member of the church to take all of these very strange, very unorthodox statements by Brigham Young about Adam and God and try and force them to fit the current orthodox teaching of the church. As I said before, from an apologetic point of view, understanding the Adam God theory is usually meant to be forcing the Adam God theory to fit the contemporary doctrine. And that is what this individual was able to do. And whether he was successful at it, I have my doubts, but I'll let you judge for yourself. Now, the member of the church who came up with this idea, his name is Eldon Watson, Elden Watson, Watson, just like Dr. Watson. And you can look up a fuller explanation of his two Adam theory on the internet at eldonwatson.net. But I'm going to synopsize it here for you because what Eldon Watson does is it seems to be his goal, as it was mine at one time, as it is for many Latter-day Saints who encounter the Adam God theory and these curious statements from Brigham Young, to try by hook or by crook to make it fit current LDS theology. And the way that Eldon Watson came up with was really quite ingenious. What he said was there are actually two Adams. And what he meant by that was this. There is a set of statements by Brigham Young in which he talks about Adam in a way that we are quite comfortable with in contemporary Mormonism. In other words, he talks about Adam as being the first person who was created in the Garden of Eden, that he and his wife partook of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, that they were cast out of the Garden of Eden, and then they started having children and ended up being the progenitors of the entire human race. That much is comfortable within current LDS theology, and to take those statements by Brigham Young at face value. And that when Brigham Young talks about Adam in that way, then he's using one name for Adam. But here's the twist. In this separate group of statements by Brigham Young, in which he talks about Adam in a way that is completely foreign to the current teaching of the LDS Church. In other words, in those statements where Brigham Young talks about the Adam God theory, and he talks about Adam as if he were Elohim. In other words, the way we currently understand Elohim as being the father of all the spirits who came to this earth and who is the God of this world and the only God with whom we have to do. When Brigham Young talked about Adam in that sense, according to Eldon Watson, then he was talking about Elohim. He really is talking about God, only he's calling God Adam as well. So this is why it's sometimes called the two Adam theory. This resolves all the difficulties, you see. There are actually two Adams. Adam is the name for the real Adam, the regular Adam, the Adam that we understand to be Adam, the Adam that was created in the Garden of Eden. But Adam is also a second name, a secret name for God the Father. And in his theory, he will even refer to them as Adam and Adam Jr., Adam being Elohim and Adam Jr. being Adam, the guy in the Garden of Eden. Now, the main problem. So actually, it's Adam Sr. and Adam Jr. So what do you think of this so far? That there's a Eldon Watson. He's got a webpage. It's been up since God was a kid, and it talks about the two Adam theory.
All right. So first off, I'd heard that episode back when you had done it, and I was aware of this two atom theory. The one thing I want to say first, I want to put this up on the stage, and I won't interrupt a bunch. I'll just act as the jury for most of the time. But you pointed out that Jonah sets himself up as a scholar, and I know that folks who watch Ward Radio would go, "Come on, they're just entertainers. They're just commenting." I'll just note, I assume this is him. This is Plain and Precious Publishing.
It is.
Yeah. So plainandpreciouspublishing.com. It's supposed to be a book publishing company, essentially. It looks like that, except they only have 6 products. And the bottom 2 here, you'll notice the key to the keystone and the lost gems of Genesis, Jonah R. Barnes, Jonah R. Barnes. As you said, that's him. So he sets himself up as a scholar. He's writing books. He certainly wouldn't want, again, if you prove this, I'll be the jury, you prove this. If people would plagiarize his books and use that, I'm assuming he would have a bit of a problem with that. When he quotes other people, he should speak to it. Now, we're at the beginning here. He just happens to be talking about the same two atom theory. And so far, I'm just going to note that the first piece of evidence is that there is this perhaps coincidence of two atom theory being taught by both people. I will say one more thing about this website, and then I'll turn it back to you. Every product on this page is authored by the same initials. 2 books are by Dr. John Butler. I shouldn't say Dr. D. John Butler. So John Butler, JB. The Antichrist Playbook is authored by Jeffrey Borders. And then the other book there on the left, the Family Proclamation for Kids, has no author. The bottom 2 are by Jonah Barnes. It's a strange thing that there's a publishing company that only has 6 products. The 5 that have authors' names are all authored by the initials JB. And that's all the products that they have. I'll just note that that's a coincidence. I'll turn it back to you. So far, first piece of evidence, 2 different people teaching the two atom theory.
Thank you. I've never heard anybody else ever teach the two atom theory other than Eldon Watson and more recently, Jonah Barnes. Have you, by the way?
No, that's the only place I know it from is from you mentioning it back in that episode and me becoming aware of one of the reconciliations for the Adam God doctrine.
Well, that is why I called it a fringe theory. So let me go ahead. We'll put that back up here. Let's go to the next piece of evidence. We'll call it the first piece of evidence, other than this strange coincidence that they're both talking about the two atom theory. There's an official statement from the church, i.e. Spencer Kimball, October 1976 General Conference. Is very famous. And because it's so famous, I don't consider this to be incredibly compelling evidence alone, but you're going to watch how this mounts up and accumulates as we go through a number more pieces of evidence along these lines. So here's what he says. On the webpage, Eldon Watson, these slides, and we're going to see several of them, okay, are all from Eldon Watson's website. I want that to be clear. It's also not formatted the best way. It's one of these websites where it has tiny print that goes all the way across your screen practically. So it's very difficult to use. And so what I did was I took screen grabs and then I put them on the slide and then I elongated them upward so that we could actually read the words, because otherwise, if you leave them the way they were before, it's too small. So that's why this looks a bit distorted upward, is because I did that with every slide so we could read it. What he starts with, or what he talks about, is an official statement by the church. I believe he starts with it. There has been an official statement made on this subject by President Spencer W. Kimball, made in the priesthood session of October Conference 1976. Can you read that statement, Bill, right underneath it from Elder Kimball?
I should be able to do that. Yep. We hope that you, so this is Spencer W. Kimball, 1976 General Conference. We hope that you teach in the various organizations, whether on the campuses or in our chapels, will always teach orthodox truth. We warn you against the dissemination of doctrines which are not according to the scriptures, and which are alleged to have been taught by some of the general authorities of past generations. Such, for instance, is the Adam God theory. We denounce that theory and hope that everyone will be cautioned against this and other kinds of false doctrine. And it also reappeared then in the Ensign November 1976, page 77 following conference.
Which is, yes, of course, because that's the conference report, or at least it used to be. So thank you for that, Bill. Can you move us to the side for just a second? Because he says several important things can be gleaned from this brief statement by President Kimball. One of them that I highlighted was the Adam God theory is alleged to have been taught by some of the general authorities in the past. All right, so let's see, does that show up in the presentation that Jonah Barnes made a week ago over at Psych Word Radio? That's the question, okay? And these are the comparisons that we're going to be doing back and forth for most of this podcast. This is, by the way, if anybody wants to check this out, sorry, it's from 7:08 to 7:50. I actually put the timestamps in the upper corner. This is example number 1, the official statement from the church / Spencer Kimball. We just read it in Eldon Watson's piece, his research, and now we're going to see what Jonah Barnes says.
Of Spencer W. Kimball denouncing the Adam God theory from 1976 October talk called Our Own Liahona, printed in the Ensign magazine, 1976. Go ahead and play this clip. It should be about 25 seconds long. It's right here.
Okay, here we go.
We warn you against the dissemination of doctrines which are not according to the scriptures and which are alleged to have been taught by some of the general authorities of a past generation, such, for instance, as the Adam God theory. We denounce that theory and hope that everyone will be cautioned against this and other kinds of false doctrine.
Okay,
Boom.
So first off, I include this for completeness. I do not think it's that overwhelming. I think that this is something that anybody who's going to be talking about the Adam God theory should bring up, which is President Kimball's famous statement in 1976 General Conference. Any thoughts by you on that, Bill?
So not only does he come up with the 2 Adam theory, but he also shares, at least in this instance, the same piece of material that that the 2 Adam theory author shares. And so now we get a second coincidence that is at least interesting.
Thank you. They're going to get more interesting from here on out, I assure you. So let's see here. If this is the one that we're using, we have 2 down below. One has the videos on it, and the other one has just the slides. Now, here's the next thing. This is example number 2, where Eldon Watson says there's less than 1% of Brigham Young sermons that talk about Adam God. And he also says it's only 20 of those sermons. So in other words, he gives the percentage, and then he gives the number of the sermons that he's identified. This is Eldon Watson, okay? I'm not vouching for the truth of any of this. I'm just saying this is what he says in his article. Can you read just the last paragraph? I think that's enough for this one, Bill.
All right, let me see if I can put us down below and still see that. Okay, so here it is. It is important to note that of the more than 1,500 recorded discourses of Brigham Young, only 20 of those discourses can be associated with the topic of Adam God, and even most of those 20 are orthodox when not improperly inserted into an Adam God context in which they do not belong. We are considering a teaching of Brigham Young which was brought up in less than 1% of his recorded discourses. So now we have Jonah Barnes and Eldon Watson doing the exact same math research on these discourses.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. We don't have it yet, but we have the clip queued up. Now, obviously, you know something about this because we did a whole show about it last Wednesday, and we have talked on the phone about things.
Right.
But notice, less than 1% of Brigham Young's sermons, which amount to only about 20 of them, is what Eldon Watson says where Brigham Young taught about Adam God. And so now we've got this clip, which is 1332 to 1431 from Jonah Barnes.
Okay. All right. So here we go. 1, Brigham Young taught Adam God. 2, Spencer W. Kimball rejected it. Therefore, the prophets can't be trusted and the church is fickle. That's the claim. Okay. So the next thing we have here is, remember the guy who said he taught it repeatedly? Here's some data. There are over 1,300 public sermons given by Brigham Young. That's a lot of sermons, okay? That are recorded, especially before video, radio, before anything. Over 1,200 of these things. The orange represents how many of them could possibly be construed to be about the Adam God theory.
Yeah, that's nothing.
It's less. It's a
margin of error.
Margin of error.
Yeah.
There's about 20 of them. Okay. Of those 20, most of them just happen to have the word God and happen to have the word Adam in the talk. Okay. So we're talking like a handful of sermons is where he gets this from, including the infamous one that you quoted, which is called the Adam God Discourse.
Now, did you hear the 1%? Carden was talking over him, and I think it's in his diagram as well, where it shows the 1% down below. If we can get that back up on the screen. I did do a screen grab of this, and I apologize, Bill, if that's possible to put up there, because I want everybody to hear that he says not only the 20 number of discourses, but also the 1%.
Yeah, he gets interrupted by Carden, and it's actually interesting the way he was about to word that, because it suggested that he was speaking kind of on the fly. Let's see if we catch it here, and I'll point out what I'm noticing, and then you can say what it is that you're picking out here too.
Okay, great. And you can see he's reading something off the screen.
Yeah, here we go.
We know what he's reading.
Okay. All right. So here we go. 1, Brigham Young taught Adam God. 2, Spencer W. Kimball rejected it. Therefore, the prophets can't be trusted and the church is fickle. That's the claim. Okay. So the next thing we have here is, remember the guy who said he taught it repeatedly? Here's some data. There are over 1,300 public sermons given by Brigham Young. That's a lot of sermons, okay? That are recorded, especially before video, radio, before anything. Over 1,200 of these things. The orange represents how many of them could possibly be construed to be about the Adam God theory.
Yeah, that's nothing.
It's less. It's
a margin of error.
It's less than 1%. That's what he said. It's less than 1%. Did you hear it, Bill?
He said it's like less than 1%. It is less than 1%. He did the data, he did the research, or even if this is his original, he did the research, or he is copying Eldon Watson's work. Like is an interesting word to throw in there. And again, it's just word choices. I'm being picky, no big deal. But he definitely mentions the 1% when he's interrupted there by Carden.
And it's because he's trying to make it sound like it's his own idea.
That's my point. When you say like, you're implying to the audience that you're speaking off the cuff, and that you're making calculations in your head as you speak. Anyway, interesting.
All right. So there's the second one. And the second one's a twofer. Not only do we get the 1%, but we also get the number 20 total, both of which are in Eldon Watson's paper, and both of which Jonah Barnes states without attribution. Okay, so the next thing is going to be number 3. The first man of each earth is called an Adam. Can you read this paragraph, Bill?
Yep. Let me try to put us
once again. And while you're doing that, I'm so sorry. Once again, I just want to make this very clear. This is Eldon Watson's research. It's all from the same page, and it's all from the same article.
Okay, here we go. You want me to start off with that scripture from Moses?
Would you just read the whole thing? Is that okay?
No worries. Another concept which is important to the correct understanding of Brigham Young's dark sayings in regard to Adam and Eve is a particular meaning of the word Adam. Adam is the Hebrew. Adam in the Hebrew can have several meanings, as was mentioned above. In Genesis, Adam has been translated as man or mankind, and also husband. It can also have the meaning of ruddy. Is that what that's saying?
Yes, ruddy or a reddish hue.
Okay, got you. It can also have the meaning of ruddy, a reddish hue, and one blood. In the book of Moses, there is another meaning which is alluded to. And this is Moses chapter 1, verse 34. It says, "And the first man of all men have I called Adam," which is many. Now, the word Adam does not mean many. So the intent of this verse is that there are many men who have been named Adam. In context, The implication is that the first man of each earth is always called Adam. Brigham Young verifies this in one of his discourses. And then it finishes here. It says, every world. Every world. Yep. Every world has had an Adam and an Eve, named so simply because the first man is always called Adam and the first woman Eve. And this is Brigham Young for This Is Life Eternal, October 8th, 1854. By the way, I just want to note something. It's a little side point. I made it the other night on Wednesday, but it's a big deal with this too. From the very beginning, when I started doing podcasting in 2012, and you did the same thing when you came on board the Mormon Discussion Channel in 2016, 2015?
16, yes.
Yeah. You and I delve into history on a regular basis. That's what we do. And when you and I delve into history, both separate from each other, we have been eager to tell the audience where we see things, where we find things, because we want them to get excited and to know the paper trail. You know, we're like Hansel and Gretel throwing the breadcrumbs, trying to leave clues of what house we're in. We have gone out of our way to show documents, to tell where sources are found, to explain so that the people who come behind watching our work will clearly be able to figure out where we got our ideas from. I think it's a strange thing. If you show the case, and we're already to the point where I'm starting to go, it looks like maybe he's using this guy's research. It's a strange thing because this isn't the first time they've done this. Every time Ward Radio goes into history or shares ideas or concepts that could be found in places that it seems quite obvious they took those ideas from, they never tell the audience where they got those ideas, and which I'm stammering over the word, but there's a rigor. There's a rigor to doing academic research that you want people to be able to chase things down unless you don't. And when you do it over and over and over again so that your audience can't follow the paper trail, it leaves all of us wondering if you don't want us to know where you find things.
Yeah, and I happen to know this paper trail. First off, I knew where he got it because I happen to know about Eldon Watson, at least as of 5 years ago, and it was a lot more before that, believe me, because I know where he got it from. And then as I go through with a fine-tooth comb, Eldon Watson's paper, by the way, if you printed this out, it would be 20 pages tops. It's not a huge book, okay? It's just an article on the internet. So I want you to understand, he's not picking from a huge book. It's just this article all over the place. And as I went through it and found out exactly where he took it from, which is what we're demonstrating tonight, it's just remarkable to me because it's not only a lack of rigor, as you say, it's certainly a lack of rigor. It's also unethical to do this if you are a professor or even an associate professor or even just a human being. If you've been through high school and graduated, you know you're not supposed to plagiarize.
Yeah. And it is strange because, like I said, from the very beginning, you and I have notified the audience where we got things so that they could follow behind us and track down the same path.
Right. So here's this idea that we'll be comparing from Eldon Watson, that the first man of each earth is called an Adam, and he quotes Brigham Young to that effect there at the bottom. Let's see if that sounds like anything that Jonah Barnes said in the same video, timestamp 44:20 to 45:15. So this will be a little bit less than a minute.
I don't think he actually believed. So here's another quote, okay?
That's just crazy.
Here's another quote. Every world has had an Adam, and an
Is this Brigham?
Eve.
This is Brigham Young?
Named so simply because the first man is always called Adam.
No way.
Yes.
This is it. This is it.
Yes.
This is what I was looking for earlier.
Right.
Like how do you know that he was using Adam as a title when he says
Yes.
Father Adam?
Yes.
That's it right there.
That's right. And let me find exactly where every world has had an Adam. I want to get the reference for this so that
Wow.
but
Make that
this
full
is
screen again, Cardin. I want to read that.
Okay. It says every world has had an Adam and an Eve, named so simply because the first man is always called Adam and the first woman Eve. Every world that has been created upon the same principle.
That's Brigham Young, October 8th, 1854. Very early.
Okay.
Can I point out something before I forget it? Because I think it's important. And then I want to get your thoughts, Bill. Notice that when Jonah Barnes looks up the reference, he doesn't come up with the Journal of Discourses reference. He comes up with the date that this was given. Did you notice that, Bill?
Yeah, I didn't, only because you're pointing it out, but now that you mention it, yes, that's what he did.
Did you notice what Eldon Watson has it cited as? Not by Journal of Discourses, but only by date given.
All right, so I'm stammering here for a second because first off, when he puts the quote up on the screen, it's so natural to put your source right there with it. He doesn't do that. He looks it up, and what it seems to indicate is that rather than looking it up by like, hey, let me see where Brigham Young said this, he's looking up where Eldon Watson says that Brigham Young said this. And so now we're beginning to get into the realm where it's no longer an easy coincidence. We're now getting to the place where the number of coincidences becomes statistically significant.
Thank you. The larger point, I'm sorry, I got into that small point, but that struck me as interesting. That down there at the very bottom where I have that small dash of highlight yellow at the bottom on the right of that last line, that's where it is. That's where the quote is from. Is made in Eldon Watson's paper, and he gives the citation. It's Brigham Young for "This is Life Eternal," because that's the name of the sermon, October 8th, 1854.
Yeah, I'm becoming bothered by the way in which he chooses to present information and not be transparent about multiple facets of what he's doing.
Well, that discomfort, I'm afraid, is only going to increase on your part, Bill.
Okay.
Here we get to number 4. Adam means first father. Now, this is really unusual, Bill, because I'll bet you hadn't heard about this before last Wednesday's show that we did on their show. So this is the idea that Adam means first father, and it talks about a change that was made in Abraham chapter 1, verse 3. You want to read this one, Bill? I'll tell you what, you're taking a drink. I'll read halfway through, and then I'll let you take the rest, okay?
Okay.
This is Eldon Watson's paper. Again, one of the meanings of Adam is therefore the first man, or more specifically, as the book of Abraham renders it, first father. Speaking of the priesthood, Abraham states, it was conferred upon me from the fathers. It came down from the fathers from the beginning of time, yea, even from the beginning or before the foundation of the earth, down to the present time, even the right of the fathers or the first man. Remember, it's or the first man. Remember how he makes a big deal about O-U-R? Okay, well, watch this. Or the first man, who is Adam, or first father through the fathers unto me, Abraham 1:3. In a church-wide satellite fireside using the scriptures, telecast on May 10th, 1985, Elder Bruce R. McConkie commented on some changes that had been made in the new edition of the book of Abraham, emphasizing a significant change made in verse 3. So you want to read this from Elder McConkie from 1985 and then go on through the rest?
Yep. So one minor textual change in Abraham is significant. A single letter is changed and a whole new doctrinal meaning is revealed. Heretofore, the text read, the first man, who is Adam, our first father, unquote, which is a simple recitation of the fact also set forth in other scriptures that Adam, the first man, is also our first father. If he is the first man, he is obviously the first father of other men. The new rendition, according with ancient manuscript reads, the new rendition according with ancient manuscript, man, I don't like the way Bruce talks sometimes, but so
Where are
be it.
you again? The problem according with the ancient manuscript?
I got it. It's just the way he puts words together isn't the natural way of talking, but that's good old Bruce R. McConkie. The new rendition, according with the ancient manuscript reads, quote, Adam or first father, unquote, making the word Adam a synonym for first father. That is the name Adam means. That is, the name Adam means first father. This is also found in the Ensign, volume 15, December 1985, page 59. It's also in the modern rendition of Abraham chapter 1, verse 3.
Right.
The last part read as well.
Please, I will make the passing observation that as far as Eldon Watson's paper goes, he has Elder McConkie giving this church-wide telecast, satellite fireside on May 10th, 1985, which would probably be difficult since he passed away the previous month. Elder McConkie died on April 19th, 1985. So that's probably an error there.
I have a question for you. Does Noah Barnes follow the same order of discussion that Eldon Watson does?
Largely. The answer is largely. But then again, he's getting questions and he's being drawn into discussions and being taken off track. And then he keeps going back to whatever's on his computer screen, which I think probably starts with an Eldon and ends with a Watson.
Yeah. All right. So this last section. Now, if the name Adam means first father, then that name is certainly applicable to God, our heavenly Father, because he was the father of the physical bodies of Adam and Eve and the one who placed them in the Garden of Eden. He was, in that sense, the first father of everyone who has ever received a physical body on this earth. Brigham Young believed that one of the names of our heavenly Father is Adam. Recognition of the simple fact will resolve the large majority of the difficulties people encounter in some of Brigham Young's discourses on the subject.
Well, of course, if Brigham Young is teaching that Adam is God, and then we call God Adam, of course, it's going to take care of the vast majority of these problems, right?
Right.
But have you ever heard that before? This use of Abraham 1:3 in order to argue that Adam is, or first father is, a title?
Until our episode on Wednesday and the research prior to put that together, listening to those clips and going and chasing down original documents and looking at things, I was unaware that there was an hour and it was changed to or, and that there was theological explanations addressing that Adam was meant or intended to mean first father. I did not know that. Okay.
Well, let's see what Jonah has to say. And if it sounds at all familiar to this is number 4. It's timestamp 1516 to 1640.
All right.
All right, so
anyway, keep going.
Let's unpack this, boys and girls. Titles. We have in the Discord the next thing here from 1913. This is a print of the Pearl of Great Price, page 52. This is the book of Abraham, chapter 1, verse 3 from the Pearl of Great Price, over 100 years old. And what does it say here? It says the priesthood, even the right of the firstborn of the first man who is Adam, our first father, is what it says.
Okay.
Adam, our first father.
This is Pearl of Great Price.
Pearl of Great Price. Amazing what one letter can do. Look at the next image that I have. This is from the original manuscript of the Pearl of Great Price, pointing to that exact same verse. And you'll notice one letter is missing.
Oh,
What?
dude, look at that.
Make it big so everybody can see.
One letter?
Right there.
Who is Adam
Or
first father? Interesting. They missed one letter. Oh, the damage a letter can do.
Oh, look at that. You're right.
So the original should read Adam or first father.
Adam means first father. That's what the word
Sure.
Adam means. It means first father. It's a title.
So it wasn't Adam, our first father. It was Adam or first father.
Announce that theory and
Does that sound familiar at all? Does that sound at all similar to what Eldon Watson had to say?
That sounds extremely similar. The way Jonah presents the material, this is also bothering me. The way he presents it is as if he's the expert in the room who's blowing people's mind. You're not going to believe what I came up with here. And I'm blowing your mind. Wait, let's go to this next one I've got, and So I was just getting ready to go over to their episode on their site,
Hmm.
and I was just looking for them to give, because at this point now, again, we
No,
started off by saying it's just coincidences.
I'm actually ahead of you on that. I've got that in the slideshow, what you're already doing.
Okay, then you would track down the same thing I would. That makes sense. All right,
It's a great idea, though, by the way, I've got to say.
I'll wait then.
It's so great, I already thought of it.
I won't even look then.
Okay, because that's going to be at the end. All right. Yeah, I think what you're talking about is they don't give any attribution to Eldon Watson anywhere.
We give
Not in the
attribution.
Not in the show notes.
Yeah. We give attribution on the slides. We give attribution in the conversation around the thing that we found. And then we put resources in the show notes. And then sometimes when the episode's a really good historical episode, I go over to Reddit and I create an entire post there so that someday, 10 years from now, someone will be able to track down that historical issue through Reddit and see all the research that you and I have done on all these historical episodes on any given issue. And it is so important to you and me to make sure that people know where we find things. And now my ears are peeled back. We're crossing the threshold for me of any other explanation other than he just stole Eldon Watson's material without acknowledging it.
Well, I tell you what, as long as we're mentioning it, why don't you go to, if you can, to, let's see what slide this is, 41. This is number 11. This was the last thing I had in the slideshow. The citation to Eldon Watson wasn't included in the show notes, even though Jonah Barnes says it will be, that we'll put the citation. This also, I think, is the only place where it is that he's struggling to remember the name under pressure. And I think he comes up with Watson very quickly before a hard edit in the podcast. It's not an edit that I did. It was in the original podcast. But it's like he's struggling to find it. He finally, he thinks it's Watson, which it is. And it never shows up in the endnotes. By the way, this is the only time he's ever even going to say the name Watson.
Okay, here we go.
I wish I had that same for Adam, because that's where I'm like, yeah, how is this used? But it seems as though that's an example of it being used as a title.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I don't have what was the name of the guy? Watson.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll find it for you later.
And we'll put links in the description. Okay, keep going.
Okay, so there's the hard edit. That was not mine. What's the name of the guy that I'm stealing all of his research from? I can't remember. Is it Watson? Okay, we'll put it in the show notes. Now, if we'll put it in the show notes, then this was, I think, yesterday. This came out a week ago. Here is the top. I did screen grabs, okay? You're not going to find anything about Eldon Watson anywhere in these show notes. You can go check them out yourself. I did a screen grab because after this, I expect they'll be adding it. You got Carden Ellis there. You can subscribe to his adventure channel. I wonder what Carden Ellis's adventure channel looks like. I wonder, but not enough to look. Go ahead.
By the way, there is a confirmation here that this is the Jonah Barnes books. There's the publishing company we showed earlier.
Yep.
Jonah puts himself forward as somebody who does scholarship and writes about deep things within Mormonism, but he doesn't even follow the basic rules of how you give people credibility for the work that they've done.
And I wanted in an abundance of fairness, because I always want to be fair with you and with the audience and give you the complete picture, is that this is the time he says Watson, and it's very, very quick. It's like I can't remember it. It's in the course of a 1-hour podcast in which he does nothing but steal from Eldon Watson's research, and he's reading it off the screen, and he can't remember the name, and it sure as heck doesn't go down into the show notes.
Yeah, it does take a little more effort to be credible in the way that you present history. You got to go find documents, you got to put things up on the screen. But this episode should have announced at the very beginning whose work they were utilizing. And it should have been in some way displayed on the images of the things that they're showing. And it should have been in the footnotes of the episode. And the fact that it's not in any of those three areas shows that these guys don't really take seriously their delving into Mormon history.
Right. Okay. So there was that. And let me go ahead and I'll go back to where we were before if I can. Do you happen to know what slide it was we were at?
I'm going to guess that we're somewhere around slide 11 or 12, I think.
We just did number 4, Adam means first father.
Okay,
So let's go to number 5, which is the 2 Adams, specifically stated as the 2 Adam theory. Can you read this part once again from Eldon Watson's article?
Yep. So Brigham Young believed that one of the names of God, our Heavenly Father, is Adam. And in many of President Young's discourses is referred to God the Father using that name. There are, therefore, 2 Adams, and although President Young did not use the designation, it will be simple for us in the following discussion to distinguish between the 2 individuals by referring to them as Adam Sr. When referring to God, our Heavenly Father, and Adam Jr. when referring to the embodied Archangel Michael. So Adam Sr. to Heavenly Father, Adam Jr. to Adam in the garden, as you mentioned earlier, who partook of the forbidden fruit and fell and became the father of Cain, Abel, Seth, etc.
Right. And I marked out that last part because that's going to be in the next point. Okay.
Yeah.
Note, please, that Eldon Watson is clear that President Young did not, repeat, not use the designation of Adam Sr. when referring to God the Father and Adam Jr. when referring to the embodied Archangel Michael or Adam. Okay. You notice that, right? Go ahead.
Doesn't that seem strange? Doesn't that seem strange that Brigham Young conflates the two to the audience while holding everything consistent in his head?
Yeah. It's a desperate post hoc theory is what it is. But
can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I'm interrupting a bunch.
No.
It also strikes me there's something going on here that's very different than the way you and I do things. So if I would have come across this paper in my early time doing podcasting, it would have caused me to go do I would have gone off and done other research outside of this paper. And so Jonah Barnes comes on to Ward Radio, and this paper is his entire episode. That seems to be the case you're making, and I'm seeing that clearly now. So everything so far seems to come from Eldon Watson's work. Jonah takes Eldon Watson's work, supposes that it solves the problem, plagiarizes from it, shares with the audience every cool point that Eldon Watson makes, and then pretends that all the cool research on this topic has been done to the point where he can dismiss the Adam God theory out of hand. You and I would have taken this paper and it would have been 10% of a larger episode that then evaluated other historical quotes, scholarly opinions, documentary history to try to figure out if this paper actually does resolve the issue, which it clearly doesn't. So what I'm also learning in real time, beyond what I already guessed at and sort of knew anyway, but what I'm learning concretely is that Jonah wants his audience to think that he's scholarly, but he doesn't actually do the work that scholars do when they tackle any given issue.
He's a poser.
He's a poser.
And not only that, this is where we get into the deceptions now. Deception upon deception. First off, it's like it's his own work. Second is he's going to change what Eldon Watson said. He'll make the point about the 2 Adams, except he's going to reverse it and make it better. And he's going to say that President Young did use these designations. In fact, he did it millions of times. Believe it or not. Here's the clip. This next clip. And I think that we'll hear Jonah saying exactly what I said he was going to say. It's from 21:29 to 23, even the timestamp.
All right, track. So originally, the revelation said Adam means first father, and Father Adam is not the same as Michael. That was what Brigham Young read.
Because he saw
them separate.
he saw Michael and Adam.
So
Father Adam and Michael.
So Brigham Young understood what then we muddle. He understood that originally Adam was a title and that Father Adam was not the same as Michael. Father Adam is what Joseph called God. He called him Father Adam because he was un-Adam. He said there's Father Adam and there's Son Adam. That's what he called them.
Okay, help me with that.
Okay.
What's the evidence that he was calling God the Father that?
There's myriad. I mean, there's a million quotes of when he says, and that DNC 137 is one of them.
Okay.
That he says there's Father Adam referring to God. And then there's Son Adam.
Really?
And Son Adam is the guy in the garden who eats the fruit and is Cain's father.
Really?
He calls it Father Adam and Son Adam. And they're separate. They're different guys.
Because he says Adam or first father.
Right.
It's a title.
It's a title. Adam, the word, is a title.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, this is interesting. Hey, well, even the Google.
There you go. So what do you think of that one, Bill?
Now I want to ask again. They won't respond to me, and they won't answer my questions. But I want to ask, where are all of these moments in the discourses, dialogue of Brigham Young, where he clearly references Father Adam and Son Adam as two different people? Because the point we made Wednesday night is that it's strange that if we are to believe this, it's so strange that Brigham Young moves from Father Adam to Son Adam so many times without ever telling the audience he shifted, and speaks in ways that it seems that the audience would clearly just think he's talking about the same Adam.
There are a couple places where Joseph Smith and Brigham Young talk about Father Adam because everybody talked about Adam as Father Adam because he's the father of the human race. Duh. Very common appellation. Let's see if there's any about Son Adam.
Yeah, there would need to be, if what Jonah just said is true, there would need to be moments in Brigham Young's conversation in one place, not one sermon here and one sermon there, in one place where he speaks of Father Adam and Son Adam in a way that the audience would normally, reasonably, without tons of allowances and conjecture, be able to sense that there are two different people being spoken of. And I don't think there's a single instance of such.
There is none. And actually, Eldon Watson admits as much. He's starting to admit it here. He admits it in the conclusion. He doesn't have it. In fact, one of the main weaknesses of his theory, which is, if this is true, why didn't Brigham Young just say so? He didn't.
Do you think that? So this part of the conversation comes about because that little dweeb kid asked a question.
Yes.
Jonah's not ready for that. Jonah doesn't have that as his planned thing to say.
I think his name is Hayden. I think I heard that somewhere. I refer to him as my boy Sherman.
Yeah, great mustache, Hayden. I just want to say that it seems like him being asked off the cuff the question gets him going into his brain trying to answer it, except he answers it with the opposite answer of the very research that he's stolen.
Because it makes the story better. Not only does he steal research without attribution, he then changes it to make it better than it is.
Yeah, because for all intents and purposes, what Eldon Watson is saying is that I'm proposing a theory here for which the evidence is actually quite weak in the commentary of Brigham Young to come down in the direction that I am coming down.
By the way, I think there's a direct correlation between Jonah there's myriad ways, there's myriad times, there's millions of times he does this. Yeah, when you start talking in that kind of euphemism and that kind of exaggeration, it's usually a good sign that you're pulling it out of your arse.
Yeah, Watson is telling you that I have a theory, but this evidence in this arena is actually a little weak. Jonah Barnes, when asked the question, decides to say that the evidence is actually quite strong.
Yes.
Ooh.
All right. So number 6, the two Eves to go along with the two Adams. You don't have to have two Eves just because you have two Adams, but Eldon Watson says, yes, There are two Eves as well. Can you read this passage from Eldon Watson's article?
Yep. So two Adams. Brigham Young believed that
Oh, there's
one.
two Eves.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It says two Adams there, but he's going to talk about two Eves. I apologize, Bill.
Yeah, no worries. All right. So two Adams. Brigham Young believed that one of the names of God, our Heavenly Father, is Adam. And in many of the President Young's discourses, he referred to God the Father using that name. There are therefore two Adams, and although President Young did not use the designation, we read this already.
This is the same thing.
Hmm?
Where I start highlighting in yellow, that's where I marked it out in blue on the previous one because it was going to lead into the two Eves.
Gotcha. So this is the same conversation we just had where he references Adam Sr., referring to God the Father, and Adam Jr., and referring to the person in the garden who took the forbidden fruit, became the father of Cain, Abel, Seth, etc. Then it says, it follows that there are also two Eves. And although in English, the description is never used with women. Sorry, the designation is never used with women. And you're right. It's the way this font is sort of stretched out. English, the designation is never used with women. We shall distinguish between them as Eve Senior and Eve Junior. This understanding allows us for the first time to correctly interpret a well-known biblical passage. And then it gives us this, which is Genesis chapter 3, verse 20. It's also found in Moses 4:26. And Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living.
Right. So he's going to interpret this against the common understanding. He even admits in a somewhat supercilious way, Eldon Watson does, for the first time, this understanding allows us for the first time to correctly interpret this passage. So what he's going to say is, when it says an Adam, it's talking about Heavenly Father, and his wife is Eve Senior, because she was the mother of all living, because she had already had all the spirits that'll come down to this earth. That's his interpretation, which for the first time is given, and which Eldon Watson says is correct.
It strikes me too. I don't know if you have it in your presentation, but if you remember Wednesday night, we talked about a place where Jonah is asked a question and he wants to tell the Ward Radio folks and the audience, he wants to say a thing, and then he wants to tell folks that he has this quote from a place, but he doesn't know where exactly to find it.
It's coming up.
I was going to say, it strikes me that at least in substance, this quote would be sufficient for that.
Actually, it wouldn't be, but only because he never remembered what it was. And we'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. It wouldn't be exactly the same as this, but notice this is two Eves. There's the Eve Senior, the Eve Junior, the Eve who's married to Elohim, and the Eve who's married to Adam, or the Eve who's married to Adam and the Eve who's married to Adam, just to make it hopelessly confusing. When you give everything the same name, suddenly, believe it or not, things get confusing. And let's see if Jonah Barnes picks up on Eldon Watson's two Eves idea as well. 27:29 to 28:17.
All right. So what we talked about previously is that people say, oh, the church changes everything. And this is an example of the church just changing stuff. Then you go back and you look at the original revelations and you find out that Brigham had read different things than we read. He read Adam means first father. It's a title. It's not a name, proper name. It's a title. And that's what Joseph and Heber C. Kimball and Brigham Young all called God. They called him Father Adam, and they called Adam that we think of as Son Adam. That's what they called them. They also, funny thing, they called Heavenly Mother, Mother Eve. Do you know that? They said
yeah.
Father Adam and Mother Eve are in the heavens.
That makes sense.
And then there's Son Adam and Daughter Eve.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
I think what's funny is he's totally cribbing from the work of somebody else named Eldon Watson without giving them attribution.
His entire episode is just telling the audience Eldon Watson's work without telling them it's Eldon Watson's work.
Yes.
Because even the moment where he mentions Watson, it's tangential to the entire conversation. It's like there's this one thing and, oh yeah, I got it from Watson. No. This entire presentation is Watson's. Again, it's going back to what I said earlier. I can now like see Jonah Barnes doing this. He goes online, He finds Eldon Watson's work and he gets excited. He reads it and he thinks, this is cool. It gives a response to the Adam God doctrine. It solves the problem, but it's only this tiny little piece of a giant puzzle or a pie. And he treats it like it solves the whole thing. It's all we have to look at. If we know Eldon Watson's work, we no longer have to deal with the Adam God doctrine. It's such a strange thing for someone who's pretending to be in academia to just cold stop after reading one person's work on a topic, thinking that just because it fascinated you, that it solves a much larger issue that has evidence from lots of different directions. Anyway, I'm struck by you use this word Wednesday night, the naivete or ignorance of a person who thinks after finding one paper that they solved a problem.
Yeah, especially such a fringe theory as this. But it's a useful theory, and so a useful idiot will use it.
Yeah, well, you said it.
So here we come up to the next one, which is going to be number 7. This is the quote Jonah can't remember. This is what was so funny. As I'm going through Eldon Watson's article, I know the quote that Jonah can't remember because it's right here in the article. Can you read this paragraph?
Yeah. It was Eve Sr. Again, this is Eldon Watson speaking.
Yes.
It was Eve Sr. to whom Adam was referring, who was the mother of all living, aka Heavenly Mother. Adam was saying, I will name her after my mother, just as I was named after my father. This explanation allows a simple understanding of one of Brigham Young's most difficult statements found in the Wilford Woodruff journals. Wilford Woodruff recorded Brigham Young as saying, quote, Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. And this is in the Wilford Woodruff journals 7, volume 7, page 152, recorded August 31st, 1873. Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. Now that is, in modern Mormonism, this would be very unusual statement. We'd go, oh, he just made a slip of the tongue. Mother Eve is Adam's wife. But this does give meaning to what Eldon Watson's, the point he's trying to make.
Actually, it doesn't make any sense even in the Adam God theory, but it's just weird. So he's going to use it. That's what conspiracy theorists do. They scour the records to try and find anomalies and then claim that they prove their theory. We've seen this with Michelle Stone, and those are the polygamy deniers. But here is the quote, which he's trying to remember. Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. This is in, by the way, have you ever heard this quote before?
No.
No, nobody's heard this quote before.
Mm-mm.
Okay. This is where it comes from. And this is what it is that Jonah Barnes is going to be trying to remember. Once again, I think, continuing to cement the case that this is the source from which he's cribbing.
Before we play this,
Mhm.
because all of his material comes out of one paper, it's not like he has to go looking for that quote some other place that he can't remember in all the documents he's looked at where he found it.
Right.
It's in the one paper he's working from. This would have been a natural moment where you or I would have said, I can't remember the quote, but it's in that Watson paper that I've got all this material from. Folks, I will link that Watson paper in the show notes. You can then go find it and find the quote I'm talking about so that you can see I'm not misrepresenting it. He acts as though he's got all this material from lots of places, and there was this one quote he came across in his research, and like you, Nibley, he forgot to write the source material down, so he's going to use it partly and tell his audience, like, I don't know where I got this from. I wish I could remember. You can remember. You got it from Eldon Watson's paper, just like all the rest of the material that you used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Dan Aykroyd said to Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, you never studied.
No. Okay, let's hear him do this. This is the quote Jonah can't remember.
One statement, and I don't know if I have it in here. But there's one statement that he makes that one time Brigham Young makes that is like the most confusing thing you've ever heard. He says, Mother Eve is the mother of Adam or something. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
He says,
like, huh?
daughter Eve is the mother of us all. And you're like, what do you, because their titles, they get mixed up. And so if you don't understand that they're
Yeah.
titles, then you get all confused, which is what happens. And the person who wrote down DNC 137 and the person who wrote down Abraham chapter 1, verse 3 didn't understand that these are titles. And he's like, you can't be talking about Father Adam. That's got to be Michael. So he crosses it out. No. Joseph was.
What do you think?
That's worse than I remembered it. Once you know he's presenting everything from one paper, he's stammering to come up with an answer other than all of this came from Watson's paper and this quote is in there too.
Mm-hmm.
He wants the audience to think that he's doing scholarship and he's providing insights that are original to him.
Mm-hmm. Just like he did with my research when he stole it.
Ooh.
That's why the name of today's show is To Catch a Thief.
Yeah, but except this guy's not as good looking as Tom Hanks. And is it Leonardo DiCaprio is the other person in that movie? Isn't there a To Catch a Thief?
That wasn't the name of the movie, though. That was To Catch a Thief was that was a Robert Wagner TV series back in the late 60s, early 70s. Also co-starred, I think, Fred Astaire in a late role.
I'll say this: if you present too many more points, it's going to be like Chris Hansen in To Catch a Predator, because this guy is intentional. Cribbing someone is its own unethical bad behavior. Having a pattern of presenting others' work as if it's yours on a multitude of occasions, you're beginning to prey on people when you do it to that extreme.
All I can say is it's a good thing that Jonah Barnes is not in college. You know why? Because he wouldn't be in college anymore.
No, he would be in lots of trouble for what he's doing right now.
You have to go see the dean. All right. Now, I did do a little bit more research into this quote that Jonah can't remember because it is odd. It's a weird thing. And I found where it is located because, of course, the source was given by Eldon Tanner. I keep saying Eldon Tanner, Eldon Watson. And this is where you can find it. This is the Woodrow Wilson Journal website. Notice it's the same date, August 31st, 1873. It was a Sunday. And down there it says, G.A. Smith, George Albert Smith spoke for 12 minutes. I dined with Bishop Budge. By the way, he's in Idaho. Afternoon, President Brigham Young spoke 1 hour and 18 minutes. Boy, he was really timing that one. He was hoping that would get over any minute. 1 hour and 18 minutes. In his remarks, by the way, notice the little keys that are drawn, like skull and crossbones, like crossbones. These are cross keys. So this is supposed to be something important. And that's why he makes note of it. This is all he has to say about the entirety of Brigham Young's 1 hour and 18 minute sermon, because he's just making a couple notes. He's not trying to transcribe it for later reproduction. And he says this, in his remarks, he said that a man who did not have but one wife in the resurrection, that woman will not be his, but taken from him and given to another. But he may be saved in the kingdom of God, but be single to all eternity. Okay. This is in this discourse, by the way, and this is one of the many places where Brigham Young says that you have to be a polygamist in order to be exalted. You can still be saved in the kingdom of heaven with one wife, but actually you can't be, because she's going to be taken from you and given to somebody else. She's going to be taken from you and given to a polygamist, is what Brigham Young said. However, here comes the quote, which is all by itself, completely unanchored from anything before or after. There it is. Can you see it, Bill? Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. And then it says, at the close of the meeting, I rode to St. Charles with Jonathan Pugmire, spent the night. So you can see that. That's the one line. There's no explication. It's very, very brief. And believe it or not, I was able to find the sermon in its entirety because this sermon is in the Journal of Discourses, Bill. It was taken down by a scribe and then made into the sermon, transliterated from the shorthand into a sermon, doubtless passed by Brigham Young for him to make corrections before it was published. And this is where it is. It's Journal of Discourses, volume 16, pages 160 through 171. That is 12 pages. This is a long sermon. It was 1 hour and 18 minutes, remember? The very long sermon. You'll find it in the Journal of Discourses, as I say, volume 16, pages 160 through 171. And it's here that we find that this was a discourse by Brigham Young, delivered in the Bowery at Paris, Oneida County, Idaho. Sunday, August 31st, 1873. And that's what I had to use in order to find this in the Journal of Discourses, was the date on which it was given. So,
by the way, you're demonstrating to me exactly what I said, which is you doing real scholarship, want to track things down, figure out the context of what's going on, let the audience know if there's original documentation out there, and helping us to then know the full extent of what we can say or not say about this particular quote.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
You'll note it was reported by John Q. Cannon. He's the one who took it down for posterity, as opposed to just jotting a couple notes in his own personal journal like Wilford Woodruff did. If you go far enough into this, you're going to find on page 167, which is more than half of the way through this lengthy sermon, this is the only paragraph it could be. Now, I read through the entire sermon. I believe I am correct in stating that. I have a bit of a different one on the next page, Bill, so it's easier to read. I just wanted to give both pages together there, so you can see where you find it. When Father Adam is the word, are the words that start this paragraph. Then we go over here. This is the paragraph. Can you read this? Now, remember, what we're looking for is what it was that Wilford Woodruff reported Brigham Young is saying. Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. Okay? You'll find that nothing like that is in here.
Yeah, I will just say Mother Eve, being Eve in the garden, is the daughter of Adam, Adam being the nickname given to Heavenly Father Elohim. We're looking for something that either A, approaches that, or which would be understood to be that part, but which was misrepresented for some reason by Wilford Woodruff.
We would think so, except for the fact, of course, they're trying to fit this into their theory. The problem is it's reversed. Remember, when you're talking about Father Adam, that's Heavenly Father. This is just Adam. When you're talking about Mother Eve, you're talking about Heavenly Mother.
Yeah.
Not Eve.
Yeah, you have to have another mistake or some other twist, which is that Mother Eve is Eve in the garden and daughter of Adam, Adam being Adam Senior, Heavenly Father. And yes, it now we're getting to the point where it becomes sort of another stretch.
Well, the good thing is that apparently Wilford Woodruff either wrote it down wrong. I mean, he's just jotting this thing down as what Brigham Young, he heard him say. We don't know when he wrote it down, contemporaneously, later on that day, maybe the next day. But this is what Brigham Young said, as reported in the Journal of Discourses, and it was taken down by George Q. Cannon, and then certainly corrected by Brigham Young before it was published.
All right, let's see if I and folks that are listening can find that spot. When Father Adam came to assist in organizing the earth out of the crude material that was found, an earth was made upon which the children of men could live. After the earth was prepared, Father Adam came and stayed here, and there was a woman brought to him. Now I am telling you something that many of you know. It has been told to you, and the brethren and the sisters should understand it. There was a certain woman brought to Father Adam, whose name was Eve, because she was the first woman, and she was given to him to be his wife. I am not disposed to give any further knowledge concerning her at present. There is no doubt but that he left many companions. The great and glorious doctrine that pertains to this, I have not time to dwell upon. Neither should I at present. If I had time, he understood. Neither should I if I had time, period. He understood this whole machinery or system before he came to this earth. I hope my brethren and sisters will profit by what I have told them.
Period. Now, if you can find someplace in the sermon where he says what Wilford Woodruff says he said, then fine. But I looked, I didn't see it. I'm not perfect. This is where he talks about anything that comes remotely close to that is in this part of the sermon. And he doesn't say it. He did not say it in this sermon. What he's doing at this point in his life, it's 1871, I think it is, and he's already spent the 1850s, early part of the 1860s preaching Adam God, not getting exactly the kind of reaction he wanted. It was not universal enthusiasm, and there were some holdouts among the saints. So he spends his latter years still talking about it, but doing it in a more veiled way, like he's doing here, saying, I've already talked about this. I'm not going to talk about it anymore at this point. A lot of you know this stuff, but I'm not going to go into any details. Instead, behind the scenes in 1877, he's going to go put it in the lecture in the veil at the St. George Temple and submit it that way into Mormon doctrine. What do you think of this? Is there anything in here that you think that matches what Wilford Woodruff wrote down?
No. And also, it just looks like the substance of the talk is just so far removed from Adam God anyway that isn't even the topic of conversation. So I go back to the quote that Watson had pointed out. Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. And I'm just trying to figure out what happened there. And I'm outside of Wilford jotting something down just incorrect. It happens to us all the time. Our brain makes some sort of connection, and in the effort to think about the thought and to write the thought down, we often mistranscribe things. It's a normal thing that we humans do. And so I'm just trying to figure out what it was he might have been trying to say. And I just don't think there's enough context here to even figure that out.
No, Wilford Woodruff made two brief entries regarding a 12-page sermon, or a sermon that when it's fleshed out is 12 pages long and it doesn't contain it. So that's why I'm concerned about the use of that particular one sentence, abbreviated sentence by Wilford Woodruff from his journals. And we can see why it is that even Eldon Watson did this. He used the Wilford Woodruff quote of Brigham Young over and above the Journal of Discourse's 12-page sermon because it fits his theory better.
Yes, I will note what the full text of the talk is indicating is, one, that God had lots of wives, plural wives, right?
Left many companions, yes.
And that one of those companions came down to be the wife of Adam in the garden. And so there are two complex thoughts sort of foreign to Mormonism. One thought being God has lots of wives. That's interesting.
Yes.
That's an interesting thing that Wilford Woodruff would want to write down, that Eve is one of many plural wives of Heavenly Father, and that God gave one of his wives to be the wife of Adam. That would be another interesting thing that one would want to write down. And as one is hearing that in one sentence or two sentences of a sermon being given, it seems like on some level, those two really cool thoughts got misrepresented by Woodruff as Mother Eve was the daughter of Adam. Mother Eve was the wife of Adam and one of the plural wives of Heavenly Father. That seems like the thought he's trying to write down, but in some way it just isn't right.
And so Jonah Barnes, following Eldon Watson, goes with Wilford Woodruff instead of. And Wilford Woodruff's journal, we would presume, is not going to be reviewed by Brigham Young for accuracy. This sure as heck was before it was published in the Journal of Discourses.
Correct.
All right. Anything else about this particular point, Bill, before we move on?
I just want to say thank you for putting up original sources so that the rest of us can do the mental work of seeing how you got there, seeing what it was that was really going on, and be able to make contextual connections and insights based on you doing real scholarship. Thank you, RFM.
You're very welcome. It's what we do. We meaning you and me, not Jonah Barnes. Okay, number 8. Oh, now this is a good one. This is so specific. You're going to love this. This is up there with Abraham 1:3 for specificity. The deletion of the name Michael from Doctrine and Covenants, section 137, the original manuscript, this vision that Joseph Smith had of the celestial kingdom. And he sees Alvin there, but he sees a lot of other people there, including Adam, Father Adam, and also including Michael. He mentions them as two separate people, which of course contradicts Mormon doctrine, which says they're the same person. They're different names for the same person, Michael and Adam. Adam was the Adam who was the first man on the earth. In pre-mortality, before that, was the archangel Michael. He probably still is again now that he's gone back. But these two people are the same, and yet in the original vision is written down. Joseph Smith says he saw them separately. So when James Talmage came along in the early 20th century, he scratched out Michael from this vision, the transcript of the vision, before it was published, so it wouldn't have that contradiction. Can you read this part? Once again, this is from Eldon Watson's paper.
Okay, I'll read the whole thing. You want read?
Yeah, please.
All right. There is another scripture in the Doctrine and Covenants, which in its original form distinguishes between the two Adams. When this account of Joseph Smith's vision was first published in the Deseret News on September 4th, 1852, someone, knowing that Michael was Adam, felt that the sentence did not make sense and modified it. Subsequent publications in Millennial Star and History of the Church have retained the modification. The account has since been incorporated into section 137 of the Doctrine and Covenants in its modified form.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? I said James Talmage. I was wrong. This was 1852. This change was made. James Talmage was involved in changing the OR in Abraham 1:3 to OUR in the early 20th century. That's what I was trying to think of.
Okay.
So here's the verse in question of 137:5, in which this vision is recorded, mentioning only one of the beings, and the Michael is stricken out.
Yeah, so subsequent publications in the Millennial Star and History of the Church have retained the modification. The account has since been incorporated into section 137, the D&C, in its modified form in the current edition of the Doctrine and Covenants. It reads, D&C 137:5, I saw Father Adam and Abraham and my father and my mother and, let me say it again. I saw Father Adam and Abraham and my father and my mother, my brother Alvin, that has long since slept.
So that's how it was published, with the Michael stricken out.
Yep. And in its original form, however, it read, I saw Father Adam and Abraham and Michael and my father and mother, my brother Alvin, that has long since slept. And the most, so hard stop there. The most reasonable thing to say about this is that Joseph, in making everything up, lost track of it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And tried to tell everyone that he had seen Abraham and Adam and Michael, Adam and Michael being, in his theology, the same person. There's no indication here that he's talking about God the Father. Nobody reading this would grasp that he's talking about God the Father, but because it's all in secret code language that only the Illuminati understands, we're all supposed to go like, oh, even though none of us would see that, in order to make this work, it obviously must be the thing that none of us see.
Very, very good point. Okay, so let's see if this is anything like what Jonah talks about, this changing of a word. By the way, just to complete that thought, so what they're saying is that they're not changing the revelation, the vision, because it contradicts, which is obvious what happens. It contradicts section 27, which says that they're the same. It also contradicts the temple endowment, which is very clear that Michael and Adam are the same being. So we're not going to deal with that. We're just going to deal with the fact that here we've got a separate Michael from Father Adam being mentioned. This is going to help our two Adam theory. So we're going to run with it in this particular way. And I think you're going to find that Jonah Barnes is going to surprisingly and coincidentally make the same discovery as Eldon Watson.
Or first father. It'll be correct. Yeah. But if you, okay, so now go to D&C.
Okay.
Section 137, second to the last section, or excuse me, third to last after they canonized the family proclamation.
Got scripture notes up right
verse
here.
5.
Okay, Rock.
This is the
Here we
vision.
are. Why are you laughing?
No, nothing. This is the vision that Joseph has of the heavens. And what does he say?
I saw Father Adam and Abraham, and my father and my mother, my brother Alvin, that has long since slept.
Now, this is something they have not corrected. So let's go to the original, which is the next image from the 21st of
Watch them
January,
update it tomorrow.
1836.
Okay.
People always get angry. They always get angry when I'm like, we need to change a chapter heading, or this thing is wrong. Or, like, I don't love doing that. People are always like, how dare you suggest that the church, look, this is the original revelation given by Joseph. Why are you mad at me?
Yeah.
Why are you mad at me? So if you look at, this is the original from the Doctrine and Covenants, section 137. And if you look, so this right here is what you see right now on your screen is what is on the church website. The next image in the Discord is what it originally was.
Okay.
You can bring up and see what Joseph
right here
actually said.
Starts off. Maybe
Such a nerd, Jonah.
And what does he say? He says, being the first provided by, see the star? I saw Father Adam and Abraham and Michael.
Okay.
Wow.
Wait, Michael's not in the D&C now. If you look at the verse 5, it's not there.
I saw Father Adam and Father Abraham and Father Michael's, what it used to say.
No, it used to go back to what it actually says, what it says today. Carden?
Yeah, right here.
In D&C 137.
Yeah.
I saw Father Adam and Abraham.
Okay, and then you're saying in this one, but see, this doesn't look like. Oh, it says Abraham right here. Okay, I see.
I saw Father
Michael.
Adam and Abraham and Michael. Wait a minute. He saw Adam and Michael?
Yeah, right underneath the star. Yeah, I was looking above the star.
Yeah.
It's underneath the star. Okay.
Because Adam is Michael?
Adam's Michael. Wait a minute. What's he talking about? He saw Adam and Michael? Now, whoever was copying this down to the D&C thought that someone must have made a mistake. And so they said, no. He couldn't have meant that.
But isn't Michael the archangel Adam?
Adam. So here in the original, Joseph says, I see Adam and Michael. And somebody said, you can't see Adam and Michael. And they changed Joseph Smith's revelation. So today we have D&C 137 is incorrect.
I saw Father Adam and Abraham.
The D&C we have today has not been set back to the original manuscript. Okay?
There's a reason for that. And it's not the one he thinks. What do you think, Bill? Is this just a remarkable coincidence?
I'm already at the point. You've met my threshold. Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say here, we're supposed to believe that what Joseph Smith is telling the reader is, I saw God the Father and Abraham and Adam, who was in the garden. But Joseph Smith decides to tell it in the way that it says, I saw Father Adam and Abraham and Michael. What he's doing is he is misleading generations of Mormons to misunderstand the revelation by writing it this way. If you want to tell people something, tell them in a way that they can understand. Joseph
Now,
Smith.
who is it you're talking about, Joseph or Jonah or Brigham?
I'm saying Joseph Smith.
Okay.
When Joseph Smith says this, Joseph Smith is writing it in code language to an audience who could never understand the code because they haven't been given the code. Joseph Smith never teaches publicly that Father Adam is Elohim, Heavenly Father. So when he writes down revelations that suppose he's taught the code but has never taught the code, nobody has the special glasses to see the code language.
And this will never be seen this way for over 100 years when somebody comes along named Eldon Watson trying their best to show that Brigham Young did not teach what he actually obviously taught. And then it's picked up and run with without attribution by Jonah Barnes.
The way more rational understanding here is that Joseph Smith, the myth maker, the one who's made up all of Mormonism, messed up inside his own head some of the things that he had proclaimed, and he announces that while Michael and Adam are the same personage, he announces in a revelation that he's seen them both separately as separate people.
Yes, I think he was seeing as a man. He was seeing the vision as a man. That was the problem.
Yeah. Jonah, you're guilty at this point, man. I mean, we're not even done, I don't think. And no, because you had number 11 was the one we went to earlier. So you're not even done yet. And it's obvious. By the way, I'll just note, he has no problem putting documents up on the screen when it's entertaining to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
He puts up the original here, no problem. He's got all these images in the Discord for Carden to pull from. Another little note, Carden not only acts like a douche, he sounds like a douche. Whoa, whoa.
Does douche mean dummy? Is that what you mean? A dummy?
I know what the word douche means, but I'm using it in the real word sense. But he not only acts like a jerk and a fool, he sounds like a jerk and a fool. Jonah here he's jumped the shark at this point. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep showing us more instances. But it is clear that Jonah has no problem putting things up on the screen when they suit his purpose. And it's clear that he goes out of his way so as to keep the audience from knowing that he is just sharing one man's work as if it's his own.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So there was the deletion of Michael. By the way, I wanted to say something about this because this interpretation that Father Adam means Elohim, it means God, right? So here's the vision of the celestial kingdom from the Joseph Smith Papers Project. This is the same one that he had the handwriting of. It's just put out there in print, right? And there's the underlined part. I saw Father Adam and Abraham and Michael. So you see, that is how it reads. I mean, I brought this point up to the Midnight Mormons when I was debating them 4 years ago down there in Utah. And I used that to show the church was changing stuff and hiding it from them. None of them had heard of it at that point. Now, the question I have is, if this is true, that Father Adam is referring to God the Father, the question I have is why God the Father is the only being in the vision that Joseph Smith mentions twice. Can you read the underlined, highlighted part? Actually, I'll read it down to it, okay? And I'll give you the punchline. The heavens were opened upon us, and I beheld the celestial kingdom of God, and the glory thereof, whether in the body or out, I cannot tell. I saw the transcendent beauty of the gate through which the heirs of that kingdom will enter, which was like unto circling flames of fire. And now you go ahead and read, and that's blazing. It's an S instead of a Z, but that's what it's supposed to be.
Also the blazing throne of God, whereon was seated the Father and the Son. I saw the beautiful streets of that kingdom, which had the appearance of being paved with gold. I saw Father Adam and Abraham and Michael.
Okay,
and
so my question, I'm cutting in there because that's there. My question is why, if this correction is correct, is Heavenly Father, God the Father, the only being mentioned twice as being seen by Joseph? Your thoughts?
This is a nonsense. If Jonah's right, this is a nonsensical way of talking. Joseph Smith is already announcing that he's seen God the Father, and then he's telling you who, in addition to God the Father, he has seen. I've seen the Father, I've seen the Son, but beyond that, I saw Father Adam and Abraham and Michael and my father, my mother, and Alvin. To make it mean something else is absolutely ridiculous. Again, by the way, I wouldn't know that unless you put the original quote up on the screen in its full context, which is what real scholars and people in academia do. Thank you, RFM.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, it's a natural thing to do when someone's giving an unusual, even radical interpretation of a scripture, to look at the thing in its entirety and see if it matches up. And this one does not seem to at all. It seems very clear that Father Adam is somebody other than God the Father or the Son, since they were seen previously in the vision and reported as being seen previously in the vision, sitting on a throne.
I just want to ask you, do you find it a strange thing? These guys, when they talk to their audience, and they did it in this episode too, by the way, they talked about how the ex-Mormons lie and deceive.
Oh yeah, Jonah said that all over the place. Jonah said that it was the anti-Mormons who created out of whole cloth this entire Adam God theory, that Brigham Young never taught it, but that the anti-Mormons came up with it, and they're just lying about it, and people are believing it. Jonah Record's there to set the record straight by using Eldon Watson's research without attribution.
Yeah. So my question to you is, do you find it strange that these guys over and over and over again are deceptive about how they present history and other people's scholarship. And then they also tell their audience how untrustworthy the you and I's of the world are.
Yeah.
And I know our audience and their audience, for the most part, is a different set of people. I
Yes,
imagine
ours have an IQ of above 100.
Yeah. I imagine, yeah, because our audience demands to see where things come from. Our audience needs to see sources, and they want to make up their own mind about how these things go together. But I think I got to imagine there's at least some crossover, 3%, 2%, people who are watching both. If any of you out there watch Ward Radio and believe them to be the good guys, and you think that Bill Reel and RFM are the deceivers, what do you do when you see things like this, which we've done more than once, showing that these guys are clearly misrepresenting the information and doing so with a motivation to obscure things so that you can't figure it out? And we're putting everything up on the screen so you can track it down and make up your own mind. I'm just curious what you guys, how do you guys make that work in your head? Anyway,
Well,
sorry.
it's very important that they convince their audience that we are a bunch of liars, because now we're going to, because then they won't believe us when we show that Jacob Hansen is not only a plagiarizer and a thief, he's also a liar too, because now we caught him. Now
Jonah
that I have proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this was his source, the Eldon Watson paper, I'm going to show you how he lied to his entire audience.
You said Jacob Hansen. That's an easy mistake to make because
Oh, I'm sorry. He's a different liar. I'm talking about Jonah Barnes.
Jonah Barnes, correct.
Yes. Okay, Jonah, here we go. Oh, no, there's one more before we even get to number 10. Punctuation difficulties. This is a rather unique idea that Eldon Watson had and that Jonah Barnes followed without attribution. Let me just go ahead and read through this real quick, okay? Because I'm not going to read every word, but I know the words to read. Is that okay, Bill?
Yeah, please.
Okay, Eldon Watson's paper titled Punctuation Difficulties. Here we go. In Pittman's shorthand of the 1850s, there was no means provided for punctuation. There were paragraph markers at best. Although this is not usually a problem, there are instances where incorrect punctuation during the transcription of the shorthand report has led to major differences in intended meaning. Of course, the main instances of incorrect punctuation are where Brigham Young is saying something that contradicts current Mormon doctrine. That's where it all goes haywire, right? A classic example of this occurs in a manuscript discourse of Brigham Young, which was recorded on February 19th, 1854. This is the 1854 sermon. This was the second big Adam God sermon by Brigham Young, as transcribed by the reporter. Brigham Young said, and it starts with, notice this, it starts with, who was it that spoke from the heavens? But all that stuff really isn't important. Let's go down to the part that's highlighted in yellow. This is where it's really important. And I'm just going to say, who did beget him? That is where we're going to start. Okay. And that's talking about Jesus. Who begot Jesus, right? Who did beget him? His Father. And his Father is our God and the Father of our spirits. And he is the framer of our body, the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Who is he? He is Father Adam. Michael, the Ancient of Days, he is a father. Let's stop there. Okay. Now, this is what Eldon Watson writes, but with only slight modification in punctuation, a more conventional understanding in complete harmony with Brigham Young's recorded views on the subject appears. In other words, with what Eldon Watson wants Brigham to say. And now he changes the punctuation slightly, and he repeats the same quote, only with a little bit different punctuation there. I'm not going to read that again, okay? But there's a little bit of a change in punctuation, which you're going to find is echoed, copied, stolen, frankly, by Jonah Barnes without attribution. This is from 2320 to 26 in their podcast over at Word Radio.
And I don't know if you have I'm sure it's in this, but they ask him, who did that? who did that? Who did this punctuation this way, updated it?
My boy Sherman does it, and he makes him admit that he got it from some guy. That's all he'll say, some guy. And Jonah, had to reformulate it. In other words, he typed it out in a different formula. And I understand, or he copied and pasted in a different formula. I understand why he did that, because you can see how hard it is to read in the original. We'll get to that here in a second. But first off, let's see the punctuation difficulties. Let's see if Jonah Barnes actually stole this from Eldon Watson as well.
On earth, so on and so forth. So there's definitely a lot of wordplay there with titles.
And that's one of the sources of the problem. So first we have Revelations get messed up. That's part of the confusion. Now let's go to titles. The next thing I have in the Discord compares a discourse that Joseph Smith gave.
Okay, cool.
Now, when Brigham Young gave. Now, when you're giving a discourse, you don't have punctuation. So let's read it with one set of punctuation and then with another. Ready?
Okay.
On the left. Who did beget him? His father. And his father is our God, the father of our spirits. He is the framer of our body. The God and father is of our Lord Jesus Christ. Who is he? He is Father Adam. Michael, the Ancient of Days. Has he a father? He has. Has he a mother? He has. This is where you get the infinite regression of gods.
Okay. This is King Follett?
No, this is an address that Brigham Young gives.
This is Brigham Young. This is Brigham. Okay.
And what does he say? He says, God is the father of Jesus Christ. Who is he? He is Father Adam, Michael, the Ancient of Days. Has he a father? He has. Has he a mother? He has. So what did he just say? He just said Adam is the father of our spirits, right? Michael is the father of Jesus Christ. He is God.
Okay.
Now, let's read it with different punctuation on the right. Who did beget him? His father and his father is our God, the God and father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Who is he?
No
He
way.
is Father Adam, period. Michael, the Ancient of Days, has he a father? He has.
Whoa.
Has he a mother?
This
He
is
has.
revolutionary.
Yep.
Who did this?
That's the power of punctuation.
Who did this? The
Who did
punctuation
this?
here.
I did this.
You did this.
I did this. But I found some guy showing this. I found some guy who showed this. He said, wait a minute. Well, you're all confused, but what if the punctuation's different? And I thought, that's a good point, because there was no punctuation.
No, he was speaking.
There was no punctuation
He was speaking.
at all. He didn't vet the stuff.
He wasn't writing. He was speaking.
He was speaking.
Oh
speaking.
my
And
God.
so the
Jonah.
Dude, this means literally the Adam
Jonah.
God theory never actually happened.
Oh, there's more.
And
There's
all
more.
that anti-Mormonism is just literally fake news and garbage.
This is one source. There's a few sermons
There's
that
more.
could have been about this.
There's more sermons. And people right now are listening going, wait a minute, but there's more. He said it more times than that. Oh, we're going to get to those. So
Jonah, this is big.
So right, thank you. So right here he says,
Yeah.
Wow, it's huge. Jonah is really, really rocking the socks off of my boy Sherman.
Oh, all right.
How'd you like how it had? I mean, that kid in the pastel pink t-shirt, he really roasted Jonah on this one. I don't think he intended to, but he roasted him by insisting on, where did you get this from? Because I know you, and I know you're not smart enough to come up with this. So he says, where did you get this? He says, I did it. That's what Jonah says. I did it. And then he says, no, who did this? And then he says, oh, some guy.
Yeah, he even answers it like, I did this, but I did see that someone else out there had this as well, is basically how he words it. And it's a strange thing to watch someone pretend to have scholarly rigor who has none at all.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay.
There's those two quotes. By the way, it's even more sure than this. This is the sure sign of the nail. This was what I started with. Remember, I wonder where Jonah got this. See, there they are. This is how he reformulated it, right? But notice he kept the exact same idea from the exact same quote with the exact same change in punctuation. Notice the citation. It's got Eldon Watson's last name on it. Watson, Brigham Young Addresses, 19 February 1854. And notice something here. I'm not sure if it's here. Yeah, it's the next one. He keeps the exact same citation from Eldon Watson. See, Watson, Brigham Young Address, 19 February 1854. That's from the Eldon Watson article. It's the same below, of course, when he changes the punctuation, because changing the punctuation doesn't change the citation. But see, it's Watson, Brigham Young Address. And notice exactly that's how Jonah Barnes cites it.
So
he recapitulates it. Go ahead.
I was just the document itself, the 2-atom document. I see on Eldon Watson's website, there's different thoughts, number 7, Atom God, May 1998. Is this the talk?
It's eldonwatson.net, and it's chapter 7. It's not everything he has. It's one chapter. Yes.
Okay. So chapter 7, I'm looking at it right now.
Yes.
What I wanted to look at was to see if this was a kind of website where I could simply just copy and paste rather than it being like a document that I have to either take a screenshot or retype out the whole thing myself.
Great thought.
And when I go to the website, it's easy that you would copy and paste it. And that appears to be exactly what Jonah does, is he copies and pastes it somewhere where he can use it.
And I could have copied and pasted it, but my point was to show that this is what Eldon Watson said. And Jonah Barnes' point was to do the opposite, to not show that this is what Eldon Watson said.
Yeah, my point being is that when he copied, by the way, great. Jonah wants to go out of his way to be the one who takes credit. And it's only because that young kid keeps insisting with his tone in his question that this couldn't possibly be you, who's the genius who did this, that Jonah, after telling everyone that he's the one who did it, then feels something and ends up needing to respond so as to be more transparent about what is going on. But then he articulates it as if he came up with it first and only as an afterthought found someone else who had done the same work.
This is going to be doubly damning to Jonah Barnes because it not only shows indisputably that he's cribbing again from the same one paper by Eldon Watson, it also shows that he read it and then he recapitulated it and reformulated it, which is going to be what is going to show that he lied to his audience on this show with example number 10, whenever you're ready to get to it.
All right, let me go to 10.
Okay, let me go ahead here. Oh, I did make a little summary slide. We probably already covered this. I said, note, Jonah Barnes said that he did this in reference to putting the slide together, the one with Eldon Watson's difference punctuation. But when press says some guy did it, and he took it from the other guy appears to be Eldon Watson. This will be devastating to Jonah Barnes later, which is the next one. It's number 10 now. The next one is number 10, when he again takes a quote from Eldon Watson, but then changes it in order to deceive his audience. He's once again going to make it better. So if we are ready for this, we're going to change the order now. On this one, we're going to play the clip first. Number 10, transcription of 1852 Brigham Young sermon by a guy named Ben Rich, ? Ben Rich. This is timestamp 3320 to 3608. Pay close attention here, because what he's going to say is that some guy named Ben Rich listened to this same 1852 sermon by Brigham Young, and where it says that God the Father was the character who was in the Garden of Eden, the famous Adam God sermon, it's the first one. He's going to say, well, another guy was there to hear the same sermon. His name was Ben Rich. Another guy was there to hear the same sermon, and he wrote it down differently. And the way that Ben Rich wrote it down was completely consonant with modern Mormon doctrine. And it says that not that he was in the Garden of Eden, but that he talked with Adam in the Garden of Eden. So it takes away any problem. People will be blown away. You can guess the likely suspects who will be blown away by this. Me, not so much. But here is the clip.
And sometimes they're maybe they're sitting in the back and you can't even hear them. Like, there's so much issue with that.
Now, occasionally, more than one person wrote down the same talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes that gets fascinating. That gets interesting. So now there's the quote from Brigham Young, which some people are screaming at the screen right now. And they're saying, what about when he said that that the same character that was in the Garden of Eden is the father of
Our next
Jesus.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
same character is, and he says it's Adam. Obviously, that means Adam is the father of the like Mary's
Okay.
husband type deal, right? So fascinating, because that very talk was listened to was written down by
No.
oh yes
Jonah.
Oh, yes.
Dude.
No way.
Yes, it was. One is in the Journal of Discourses, and that's the one that everybody reads. Okay,
Okay.
so it's in here underneath Legine Caruth's thing.
No.
Okay, and this is the woman who's the number one expert on the Journal of Discourses.
Yes.
And
Oh,
she
yeah,
herself
yeah.
says trusting the Journal of Discourses enough to leave the church over it is a
Right.
really bad idea.
She's like, that's not a good idea.
I'm the expert in shorthand of the woman that copied down Brigham Young's speeches, and I don't say this flies. And now there's two copies in the Discord. Okay, I'm pulling it up.
This is
this
right-
one
yeah.
right
This
here?
is crazy.
This one right here?
Okay, right here.
No.
So on the
Okay.
left is Journal of Discourses. And what does it say? Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character that was in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven. Oh, well, everybody goes, well, that's Adam. He's saying Adam begot Jesus's physical body with Mary.
One more time.
Jesus-
Which one are we looking at here? Left.
Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character that was in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven.
Mhm.
So that's Adam. And earlier in that talk, he's talking about Adam. And you go, oh my gosh, he's
okay.
saying Adam is
Okay.
literally the physical father of Jesus of Nazareth.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Okay. Now, here's a second account given by a guy who heard the exact same talk and fills in some interesting details. This is from Ben Rich, who says, Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character who talked with Adam in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven. So
oh, dude.
they
And you know
missed the
what
sentence.
makes
Okay. So Jonah represents Ben Rich as being a guy who was present and heard the exact same talk and wrote it down in a way that's completely consonant with current Mormon understanding and actually is different from the Adam God theory, which somehow got put in the Journal of Discourses, the version that Brigham Young actually corrected and made sure that it represented what it was that he had said. Okay. Now, the first thought I had, which is, even though I've studied this an awful lot and spent years studying it, I'd never heard of this statement by Ben Rich, a different person writing it down in such a way that suddenly makes all the problems disappear. So I had to do some research, and this was the first bit of research I did, and it's reflected in this slide. Actually, it'll be this slide here. Ben Rich did not transcribe any Brigham Young sermons. Let me repeat that. Ben Rich did not transcribe any Brigham Young sermons because there was a number of people who transcribed his sermons, and I know a lot of their names. I don't know them all. Maybe Ben Rich was one. I don't know. That's why I had to research it. Ben Rich did not transcribe any of Brigham Young's sermons. The primary person who recorded and transcribed Brigham Young's sermons was George D. Watt, although we see George Buchanan did it in another place, right? Using Pittman shorthand. Other reporters like John Long and David Evans also contributed to the recording of sermons published in the Journal of Discourses. Ben Rich, middle initial E, Ben E. Rich. It's like Ben E. King, but this is a Mormon. 1855 to 1913. Was a later prominent member and mission president in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but his life overlapped only slightly with the end of Brigham Young's life because he passed away in 1877. And Ben Rich was not involved in the original recording or transcription of the sermons. The source mentioning Ben Rich only lists some quotes he published, one of which was attributed to Brigham Young, but it does not indicate Rich transcribed the sermons himself. Indeed, as we look at it, it would have been very difficult for Ben Rich to have transcribed this particular sermons because he hadn't even been born yet. That sermon was given by Brigham Young in 1852, And Ben Rich wasn't born until 1855.
Talk about infants on thrones.
You got pre-infants transcribing sermons of Brigham Young. So I saw this and I kept researching because I thought, well, am I wrong? Because this is always where I go to. Do I have it wrong? Is there another Ben Rich? Maybe his dad who did transcribe the sermon. I don't think so. And here's why. It gets worse now. It gets worse for Jonah Barnes. And here's how it gets worse. I wonder where Jonah Barnes got this. This is what he showed on the screen, isn't it, Bill?
That's
the two
it.
quotes side by side.
Me wonders if I know where he might have gotten it.
Yeah, it's going to be worse because he got it from Eldon Watson's paper. Now, Eldon Watson spends some deal of his paper, it's a few pages, doing a comparison of Brigham Young's 1852 sermon recorded in Journal of Discourses, Volume 1, pages 50 through 51 on the right-hand side. And on the left, you see there at the top, it said the Wilford Woodruff Journal. He puts down what Wilford Woodruff wrote about it, juxtaposed with the Journal of Discourses version. He gets down on the right-hand side where it talks about this idea about the character who was in the Garden of Eden, right? And suddenly now, Eldon Watson changes his MO because he can't resist. He has to include this quote from Ben E. Rich. You see it's underlined there? This is the only place he quotes somebody in this left paragraph other than Wilford Woodruff, who's noted above. He makes it clear that he's quoting Ben E. Rich in this instance. You see what he says after Ben E. Rich there, Bill?
Yeah, Ben E. Rich, who was not present.
Eldon Watson, in his paper, to his credit, acknowledges that Ben E. Rich was not present when Brigham Young heard the sermon, which is a nice way of saying he wasn't born yet. But I guess if he's not born, he's not present, right? So Ben E. Rich, who was not present, said Brigham Young said here, and then can you read that quote? Because it's the exact same thing that was copied by Jonah Barnes.
Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character who talked with Adam in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven.
Very good. That's where he stole this from Eldon Watson's paper again. And I said, look what Jonah Barnes left out. See, when he writes it, he just writes Ben Rich. He doesn't include the part about who was not present. Now, if he's not present, what difference does it make? If he's not present to even hear what Brigham Young says, why does it matter what he wrote down and how he characterized what Brigham Young said? See, that's the first problem when it's being used by Eldon Watson. The problem here is that Eldon Watson actually says that Ben E. Rich was not present. I think I've proven beyond a reasonable doubt, enough to send somebody to prison, that Jonah Barnes was using the Eldon Watson paper to crib from, and he was stealing his ideas from here, which means that Jonah Barnes read that Ben Rich was not present when Brigham Young said that's right. He knows that. He intentionally took that part out on the right. That's Jonah Barnes' version. He intentionally omits that part that Ben Rich is not present. And then he tells the story and claims that he was present. He said this guy heard the exact same sermon, heard the exact same talk. And I'm actually going to ask you to play that part again. It might have been too long. I tell you what, I'll let people remember that or replay it themselves, because it was like a 3-minute clip, wasn't it? The last one? I think it was. So we don't have to replay it, but he claims, and also toward the end, in 2 different places, but in that one clip we had, that Ben Rich heard the exact same sermon and wrote it down this way. And you see, that makes it better. That takes care of the problem that I just identified, which makes this a very weak piece of evidence, if it's even evidence at all. I don't think this would even get admitted in a courtroom, since he wasn't even there to hear it. What Ben Rich is doing is just taking the talk from the Journal of Discourses and adding some words in order to make it not Adam God. Because now it's after Brigham Young's dead that he's doing this, and now the church is backing away. So this is very helpful for that purpose.
All right. First off, this is the second time he has stated the opposite of what Watson is saying. Number one. Number two is, I guess you could argue that he just didn't notice that it said who was not present. Maybe he was reading it and somehow his eyes and brain skipped over the word not. But now we have two instances of him presenting the opposite and also inaccurate, unreliable point of view about this material. So if he did miss it, it strikes to his own credibility as a scholar and somebody who should be trusted to give you this kind of information. Now, it appears it's much more reasonable to think that he did that intentionally, because his entire crux is that this guy was here. That's what makes this so fascinating to the audience as a piece to present, is that there's this other guy who heard the sermon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal to him, yet that guy was not there at all. I also want to note, by the way, I tried to find where Ben Rich first addressed this quote. Where is the original place for this? Can't find it. Here's what I did.
Either. I could not either.
Yep. Here's what I did find. Ben E. Rich, born 1855, 1913, as you point out, born 3 years after this talk was given, was active in missionary work and public speaking for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But his public addresses are generally documented from the 1880s onward.
Mm.
The quote you mention is, and this is just ChatGPT, by the way, going through the internet and trying to find stuff. It notes that the only place this is mentioned is by Watson in his compilation here of the two atoms theory. What appears to me to be the most reasonable thing to say is that Ben Rich is probably the first person in being out there as a voice for the church within his missionary work, in trying to address the atom God theory, is the first person to give us the apologetic response that goes, hey, this quote is problematic. What if I make this atom being spoken of, the person who, let me say it differently, the person who is the God of our, let me get the quote here. It's Young says, Jesus, our little brother, was begotten in the flesh, the same character who talked with Adam. He's the one who's inserting that. He's the first person giving us this apologetic response, which makes sense. We have this apologetic response. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Where does it come from? It comes from some believer somewhere who can't reconcile it the way it originally was. It looks problematic. They come up with an alternative meaning. We all know that that's been done. We don't know who the original person is. It appears that the original person is Ben Rich.
And strangely, you will note that in this rather well-documented article by Eldon Watson, well, look at the chart up there on the top left, Wilford Woodruff Journal, Volume 4, pages 129 through 130. On the right column, Journal of Discourses, Volume 1, pages 50 through 51. Ben E. Rich, no freaking citation. This is unusual. He doesn't give any citation to this Eldon Watson I'm talking about in his paper, which immediately makes you wonder, where the heck did he get it from? Now, obviously, it was too attractive to him to resist, and he should have resisted using this. Because what does it mean when you don't have a citation for something? And like you said, you look through the whole internet, you're not going to find it. The only place you're going to find this quote from Benny Rich is in this paper. So who knows if he said it or how it is that Eldon Watson is saying that he knows he said it.
Yeah. So while
all I can say for sure is that he didn't hear Brigham Young say it and then write it down.
I think it's worse, by the way, which is what. So first off, Carden and Mustache Boy, they're excited. They are so thrilled. You heard Carden 3 or 4 times, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, this was just a nothing, a non sequitur, a false thing,
Mm-hmm.
and a misdirection. But it's worse than that, because they're so sure that this is a cool thing that's true. They tell you that if we stick with what actually was said, that's problematic. That seems to teach the Adam God doctrine.
Look closely.
And if we get rid of Ben Rich because he's born 3 years later, all we're left with is the thing that they agree is problematic if we don't have Ben Rich.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why I didn't say that there was another person who recorded it, and that was Wilford Woodruff. But probably because Wilford Woodruff, although it's much more abbreviated, says the same problematic things in his recording of Brigham Young's talk. Wilford Woodruff was a follower of Brigham Young and believed the Adam God theory.
Yeah, you make a great point, which is not only does he misrepresent Ben Rich as being there, he leaves out the more authoritative restating of what was said that day by one who was there because it's not convenient to his theory and perspective.
Yeah, he'll use that one line quote from Wilford Woodruff's journal when it benefits him. But when it doesn't benefit him, he's not even going to mention that Wilford Woodruff also transcribed these problematic statements from the same sermon in 1852 by Brigham Young. Okay, so I think that I have proven not only, and you tell me, because I'm going to ask you to deliberate, Bill, to go out with the other 11 jurors and deliberate as long as you need to decide the two questions. Has Radio Free Mormon proven beyond a reasonable doubt, number one, that Jonah Barnes cribbed from this paper by Eldon Watson in his presentation without appropriate attribution? And number two, that Jonah Barnes lied to his audience when he omitted the fact that Benny Rich was not present, and that's in the source material that I already proved he used, took that out, and not just took it out, but then affirmatively claimed that Benny Rich was present. By the way, this is such an important point. Can we play this again? I think we need to hear this, because if I'm going to make this claim about somebody lying, that's a strong claim. I don't make it very often. But I think the evidence here is overwhelming that that's the case. So this was 3320. Can you put it at 1.5 as you play this?
I want to stop you for just a second. So I'm doing more tracking. I asked ChatGPT ended that conversation with me by saying, if you like, I can dig into archived LDS journals, mission addresses, conference reports to try to locate the first known occasion. So I asked it to do that. And so while we were continuing our conversation, it went off and did some research.
Is this that paper from Dialogue?
This is. All right. Adam.
We talked about it on Wednesday, folks.
Yeah. Adam, who is he? Pages 15 to 19.
That's the Mark E. Peterson book.
Yeah. If I go to, let me go to the top of this really quick, because I'll come back down to that. So this is Dialogue. This is the Adam God Doctrine by David John Berger. Yes, we referenced this on Wednesday's show. If I go down now to the footnotes, here we go.
Footnote 113.
Yeah. So Adam, who is he? For a similar response, also Hugh B. Brown, Morris Reynolds, May 13, 1966, photocopy in my possession for a similar response. Elder Peterson's mistranscription argument was based upon a claim that Apostle Charles C. Rich heard Young's April 9th, 1852 sermon and personally corrected the text to a more accurate rendition in his copy of the Journal of Discourses. After publication of Adam, who is he? However, subsequent research showed that Elder Rich was en route from San Bernardino to Salt Lake City and could not have heard Young's sermon.
Oh my gosh. And this isn't even Ben Rich. This is probably his dad, right? So he wasn't even there to hear the sermon.
It is. And then, so this is where Ben Rich comes in. The personal correction was actually made by Rich's son, Ben, who was born in 1855. The actual inscription of Rich states, as corrected above, is what President Young said, as testified to me by my father, C.C. Rich. So, all right, so this gets really bad.
So either his dad is lying because he wasn't there to hear the sermon, or his son, Ben Rich, is lying because he never heard it from his dad.
The best that it could possibly be is that Ben heard his dad say that that was not the right transcription, because his dad then would have needed to have heard it from another source. And so now we're talking fourth hand, Brigham Young to someone, to Ben Rich's dad, who was an apostle, Charles C. Rich, to Ben, who then writes it down in his personal copy of Journal of Discourses. This is so much worse once you track this down. By the way, this is what real scholarship looks like, is tracking stuff down, putting it on the screen, and letting people know the context of things, something Jonah Barnes doesn't even consider to do.
No, it's too much work. That thinking business, it's a hard deal.
Ben Rich is told by his father, Charles C. Rich, that this was the actual correct transcription, even though he couldn't possibly have been there either. He was en route from San Bernardino to Salt Lake City and didn't hear Young's sermon.
Maybe he was listening to it on Bonneville.
So now,
What do you
knowing
think?
that, yeah, well,
It was on
maybe
the AM radio.
Bonneville Communications, owned by the church, by the way.
You got to do something to entertain yourself. That's a long trip back then.
Yeah. So now this gets way worse. So
Let's
here,
focus on 1.5, and I just wanted to hear him say it again. Okay, what he's going to say is, and listen for it, folks. Okay, is that this guy that he's quoting from, Ben Rich, heard the exact same talk and wrote it down this way.
playback speed 1.5. Here it is.
And sometimes they're maybe they're sitting in the back and you can't even hear them. Like
Yeah.
there's so much
Right?
issue with that.
Now, occasionally, more than one person wrote down the same talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes that gets fascinating. That gets interesting. So now there's the quote from Brigham Young, which some people are screaming at the screen right now, and they're saying, "What about when he said that that the same character that was in the Garden of Eden is the father of Jesus?
Yeah.
Well, the
Okay.
same character is, and he says it's Adam. Obviously, that means Adam is the father of like Mary's
Okay.
husband type deal, right?
Can you go forward like 1 minute in this?
Very talk was
Because he's just going to blah, blah, blah about what I was saying.
No way.
Yes, it was, and that's the one that everybody reads. Okay, so
Okay.
it's in here underneath Legine Caruth's thing.
Okay, and this is the
Uh-oh.
woman who's the number one
Oh, geez.
expert.
Can we go
on-
another 30 seconds at least?
She
Get past
herself
that?
yeah.
says, trusting the Journal of Discourses shorthand of the flies. And now there's
Thank
two
you.
copies in the Discord. Okay, I'm pulling it up.
This is
this
right
one
here.
This is
This one right
crazy.
here.
Okay, right here.
No.
So on the
Okay.
left is Journal of Discourses, and what does it say? Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character that was in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven. Oh, well, everybody goes, well, that's Adam. He's saying Adam begot Jesus' physical body with Mary.
One more time.
Jesus-
Which one are we looking at here?
Left. Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character that was in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven. So that's Adam. And earlier in that talk, he's talking about Adam. And you go, oh my gosh, he's saying Adam is literally the physical father of Jesus of Nazareth, right? Okay. Now, here's a second account given by a guy who heard the exact same talk and fills in some interesting details. This is from Ben Rich, who says, Jesus, our elder brother, was begotten in the flesh by the same character who talked with Adam in the Garden of Eden and who is our Father in heaven. So,
Okay, that's good enough. Did you hear it, Bill? Was it clear?
He claims Ben Rich was there.
Hear the exact same talk.
Ben
Because
Rich
he has to have heard the talk for this to have any evidentiary value.
Ben Rich wasn't there. Not
He
only
wasn't
that,
there.
Ben Rich says he heard his dad say that the transcription was corrected this way. His dad wasn't there either.
So this is the problem, is that this is what happens when you start making things up, Jonah. Let me talk to you directly because I trust you're going to watch this, all right? Here's the thing. When you took out the part about Ben Rich not being present from the source you were obviously using to get this information, and then affirmatively claimed that he was present, that's a lie, and you're a liar. Jonah
Yeah.
Barnes, that's a lie, and you're a liar.
He
Now, if you want to come on the show and talk about it and explain to this audience, you certainly owe it to your audience. But if you want to come on this show and explain to this audience how it is that these facts do not mean that you are a liar, you're very welcome to come on, and we'll make every effort to accommodate you. But I'm calling you out now for your audience, because that's pretty bad when you're lying to your audience in order to score rhetorical points.
he copies and pastes from Watson's document. He removes, in order to do that, he has to ignore, not use, take out, when he copies and pastes, the one sentence that acknowledged that Ben Rich wasn't there. He also has to avoid putting Woodruff stuff up completely so that you can see that Woodruff actually agrees with the original statement in the Journal of Discourses. This is such a big point for him. And it's such a moment where Cardin and Mustache Boy get to dismiss the Adam God doctrine. I want to say one more thing too, and then I'll let you go from there. There's something that happens with believers. Believers start with belief persistence, confirmation bias. They want Mormonism to be true. And you and I did this too. We're early in the church and we encounter a problem and we see that someone's addressed it. And the fact that someone has addressed it is enough for us. We don't want to dig anymore. We just want it to be true. So we don't go any further than to go, there's the response. The response seems to solve the problem. There's smarter people than me. I'm just going to let it go there and move on with my day and get back to doing my home teaching and preparing my Sunday school lesson. But real critical thinkers not only encounter the problem, because this shift in me happened pretty quickly. I really quickly, early in my time in the church, learned that apologetics were limited and they didn't really do a fair job, no pun intended, of going into the data and seeing if there were additional contradictions or if the argument actually does hold up. So as a critical thinker, when I decided early on that I was going to do better critical thinking than baseline apologetics and walking away thinking the issue had been resolved, you and I will then go do more research and try to see where things were, what was said originally. If something doesn't make sense, we keep searching to try to find more context. And then once in a while you reach a dead end and you can't figure it out. But generally speaking, there's always the ability to find more. And then once we got to that place, RFM, we would look back. I still do this day. I look back at the believers and the apologist who accept the simple answer that addresses the problem, but doesn't actually. And I'm disappointed in them for not taking the work any further. Like, it was always more important for the church to end up true than to actually do the work to try to figure out what the truth is. And so now I'm just noticing that Jonah Barnes found a paper by Eldon Watson and he stopped there. And he presents the paper to Mustache Boy and Cardin Ellis, and they stop there. And the audience listens to Ward Radio and thinks the problem is resolved, and they stop there. There is no desire on the part of this group of people to really want to know the issue and to really want to know if, in fact, Adam God does add up or doesn't add up, if it's a problem or not. And it's the clear discrepancy between what I will call real truth seekers and a group of people who just want to appease themselves and be entertained.
Great point. By the way, this is slide 41, Bill. This was the clip we played before. This is the only time in which Watson's name is mentioned in this podcast. And I thought it's only fair to play it again now that we've shown, I think, indisputably, that he's cribbing virtually exclusively, if not exclusively, from Eldon Watson's paper, that this is what he says. And this is the only time he mentions Watson's name, is when he's struggling to try and remember the name. He's not even sure he has it right when he says Watson.
And I'll just add before I push play, notice that it's being said around one tangential issue, not the entire presentation as a whole.
Yeah, this is in the middle of the podcast. It's about 52 minutes long, I think. So it's a little bit past the midway point.
Okay, here it is.
I wish I had that same for Adam, because that's where I'm like, yeah, how is this used? But it seems as though that's an example of it being used as a title.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I don't have what was the name of the guy? Watson.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll find it for you later.
And we'll put links in the description. Okay, keep going.
What is the name of the guy that I've been stealing from for this entire show?
Yeah, but he says what's the name of the guy who said the one thing?
Oh, you're right.
It's the name. What's the name of the guy? What's the name of the guy that says that one thing I'm using? Oh, Watson. We'll make sure it's in the show notes.
Yeah.
Everything he shared today. It reminds me of an episode I did early on where I did William Hartley's to Men and Boys. Do you remember the old dialogue article from William Hartley, who talks about the development of the priesthood from a very different angle than Gregory Prince tackles it?
Mm-hmm.
In that episode, I go, "Hey, this is William Hartley's material, and yes, I'm cribbing it, but I'll show you everywhere where I'm cribbing it, and I'll put up I'll talk about what the original says, and I'll put it in the show notes so you can find it." And I was worried that I was plagiarizing in a way that was unethical. Meanwhile, I'm telling my audience every step of the way what I'm doing.
Right.
This guy does not want. He wants to be looked at as the smartest guy in the room.
Yes.
When after knowing what he did and what he got wrong and what he avoided, again, there are 100 quotes that make Eldon Watson's material irrelevant to the problem unless you're a believer and you only want to get a reconciliation without having to actually deal with the issue and get to walk away and go back to your world. These guys, this guy, Jonah Barnes, what a dishonest, deceptive person.
I think that's a charitable way of putting it.
Yeah.
And after that clip, I had put this here because once again, it's not in the show notes. I hope they will correct that and put eldonwatson.net in their show notes, since that's where the entirety or virtually the entirety of the entire episode came from. This is my little concluding thought slide. Number one, Jonah Barnes used the research of Eldon Watson wholesale without giving him proper attribution. Lesser minds would call this plagiarism. And number two, Jonah Barnes changes what Eldon Watson says on 2 occasions to make it sound better for the LDS Church. The first occasion is Jonah claims Joseph Smith and Brigham Young referred to Adam and Elohim by certain special titles on millions of occasions. Eldon Watson says they never did so. And not
only does Elder Watson say they never did so, also you, I, and seemingly every other historian and scholar is unable to find them if he did.
Yes. Now, just to be clear, Father Adam, you'll find that. You're not going to find Son Adam. You're not going to find Adam Sr. You're not going to find Adam Jr. And the second one that we just covered, Jonah Barnes removes Eldon Watson's note that Ben Rich was not present for the 1852 sermon by Brigham Young. And not only that, Jonah then goes on to affirmatively claim that Ben Rich was actually present for the sermon and wrote it down. This is what I have sought to prove. I gave my opening statement. I presented the evidence. This is my closing argument. How does the jury find?
If this were a lawsuit of like a copyright or something, it would be clear cut to the jury. Certainly is to myself. I have to imagine it's going to be to your audience that watches this on Saturday evening. It seems crystal clear at this point that Jonah Barnes is presenting this one way. In reality, it is something else in the material. Again, it's not that he does one thing. He took Eldon Watson's entire article and then presents it as if he did the scholarship and he's presenting some cool thing with insights from over here and insights from over there. And I can't remember that one quote. Oh yeah, that one thing was Watson. And presents it to his audience like he's the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is he not the smartest guy in the room because all of it came from someone else, but once you know the actual depth of the Adam God issue, you recognize that these fools on this stage are clueless to the actual data that makes the Adam God doctrine problematic. It's crazy.
I think it's safe to say that Jonah Barnes is relying on his audience not knowing Eldon Watson wrote this paper.
Yeah.
And even if he knows his name, he only got Watson out. I think Watson? There's one to give Eldon Watson because people could find that. And then they could see exactly what we see and what we've shown our audience today.
You're gross, Jonah. That's gross.
Yeah. Well, he wears a heck of a t-shirt. That's all I can say. So everybody, are you done, Bill? Because I'm ready to take us out of here. Everybody, thanks so much for watching us. The name of the show is To Catch a Thief. This episode, I think we caught him. I think we caught him by his toe. I think we caught him by all his toes and all his fingers, and even perhaps an additional member or two. We caught Jonah Barnes by all of them. He's a thief and he's a liar. But once again, we have the red carpet rolled out. If you want to come in and explain how it is that you're not a thief or a liar, Jonah, I hope you'll take us up on it. We'd be very interested in hearing what you have to say. And I think our audience would too. I think your audience would be very interested in hearing what you have to say. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us here at Radio Free Mormon. By the way, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please leave a comment below. Let us know what you think as to whether Jonah Barnes is a thief and whether you think Jonah Barnes is a liar, and if you think this evidence has proven both beyond a reasonable doubt. Once again, thanks, everybody. That's about all for tonight. Please join me next time for another episode of Radio Free Mormon. Good night, and thanks again, Bill.
Good night.